In the quiet farmlands of Wicklow County, Indiana, life in the 1950s followed the rhythm of the church bells. Families rose with the sun, worked their fields, and gathered each Sunday beneath the spire of St. Matthew's Church, a small wooden chapel that had stood for nearly a century. It was a place where faith guided every decision, and secrets rarely escaped the pulpit. On the evening of October 12, 1958, the parish congregation gathered for a special evening mass marking the close of the harvest season. The rain had started just before sunset, pattering gently against the stained glass windows as the choirs sang their final hymn. When the service ended, people drifted out into the damp night, all except one. Mary-Lou Wesson, a 26-year-old choir singer known for her kindness and a voice that seemed to make the rafters hum, lingered behind. Witnesses last saw her near the altar, speaking quietly with the parish priest, Father Patrick Donnelly. The candles flickered. The church fell silent. By morning, Mary-Lou's mother reported her missing. Her bed was untouched. Her shoes, the same pair she wore to Mass, sat neatly by the door. The sheriff's search went on for weeks, then months, until the town's hope thinned to whispers. The case faded into legend, a ghost story parents told to warn their daughters about walking home alone after dark. But 4 decades later, in 1998, when workmen began repairing the church's cracked foundation, they struck something solid behind a plastered wall, and what they uncovered would unravel one of the darkest secrets Wicklow County ever buried. The autumn of 1958 painted Wicklow County gold and rust. Rows of cornfields bowed under the wind, and the smell of burning wood lingered in the air. St. Matthew's Church sat atop a low hill overlooking the town, its white steeple visible from nearly every farmhouse. Mary-Lou Wesson had grown up singing there. Her father had built the church pews years before his death, and her mother often said that the scent of pine and candle wax felt like home. At 26, Mary-Lou was neither naive nor worldly. She worked part-time at the local post office, helped her mother tend chickens, and spent evenings at the church piano, rehearsing hymns for Sunday service. That October day had been unremarkable. Rain clouds loomed over the horizon, and townsfolk prepared for the harvest festival scheduled for the following week. The evening mass was meant to be short, a prayer of gratitude before the fields were cleared. Parishioners later recalled that Mary-Lou arrived early, wearing her powder blue dress and carrying a brown leather hymnal. She sang "Abide with Me," with a clarity that made even the stoic Father Donnelly pause at the altar. After the final blessing, people began to leave, folding umbrellas and exchanging quiet goodnights. Mrs. Elvira Green, a longtime member of the congregation, lingered near the doorway. She later told investigators she had seen Mary-Lou approach the priest, holding what looked like an envelope. She seemed nervous, Mrs. Green recalled. Her hands trembled when she spoke to him. I remember because the candlelight caught her face, and he looked furious. That was the last confirmed sighting of Mary-Lou. When she didn't come home, her mother waited on the porch until dawn. She checked the fields, the barn, even the road into town. Nothing. By noon, the sheriff's office had issued a missing person alert. Deputy Harlan Reed questioned the priest first. Donnelly claimed he'd locked the church shortly after the service and gone straight to the rectory. "Perhaps she stayed behind to pray," he said. "But when I returned, she was gone." Reed wasn't convinced. He found a side vestry door unlatched, its handle slick from rain. Inside, muddy footprints led to a corridor sealed by an aging wooden panel. When he mentioned it, the priest brushed him off. "It's old storage. Been sealed for decades." The deputy made a note, but without cause to pry open church property. His hands were tied. Within a week, the search spread to nearby rivers and woods. Volunteers combed every dirt road for signs of the missing woman. Her photograph, a black-and-white portrait showing her with a shy smile, hung in the diner window for years afterward. But no one ever found a trace. By winter, snow covered the fields, and Wicklow learned to live with its unanswered question: what happened to Mary-Lou Wesson? In the months that followed, rumors sprouted like weeds through Wicklow. Some claimed Mary-Lou had run away with a traveling salesman. Others whispered she was pregnant, the father a man of the cloth. The church dismissed such talk as blasphemy, but gossip has a way of surviving sermons. Mrs. Wesson never gave up hope. Every October 12th, she left a single white lily on the church steps, a mother's quiet defiance against time. The official investigation stalled. Sheriff reports mention no signs of abduction, no evidence of violence. But several details never made it into the public record. For instance, a young Alta boy later told deputies that the night after Mary-Lou vanished, he saw Father Donnelly carrying a hammer and sack toward the northern wing of the church. When asked about it years later, the boy, then a grown man, said he'd been too afraid to speak. The following year, 1959, the church underwent minor construction to repair foundation cracks. A local contractor named Eli Morton supervised the work but died in an accident before finishing the job. His death certificate listed fall from scaffolding, though no one in town remembered hearing about a funeral. By the mid-1960s, Mary-Lou's case had gone cold. Father Donnelly continued to lead Mass every Sunday, his sermons turning darker, his temper shorter. Parishioners noticed he drank more often, muttering verses to himself between confessions. In 1977, at the age of 73, Father Donnelly was found dead in his quarters, heart failure, according to the coroner. But among his personal effects, the new priest, Father O'Brien, discovered something strange, a handwritten note tucked into a leather-bound Bible. It read, "The truth is within the walls. May God forgive the hand that sealed it." O'Brien dismissed it as a rambling metaphor. The town never questioned it. But in the back pew of every Sunday service, Deputy Reed, retired now, still sat listening, watching, remembering. The northern wall of the church always caught his eye. Something about its uneven texture, the faint line that broke across the plaster like a hidden seam. Time passed. The church aged. Paint peeled. The congregation thinned. Yet Wicklow's oldest secret waited patiently behind that very wall. By the spring of 1998, St. Matthew's was a relic. Its roof leaked. Termites chewed through the pews, and most of the original parishioners were long buried in the adjoining cemetery. When the diocese finally approved renovation funds, a small construction crew arrived to stabilize the foundation. Among them was Thomas Gray, a methodical contractor with a reputation for thoroughness. As he reviewed the building's original blueprints, he noticed a discrepancy. The northern wall was nearly 2 feet thicker than recorded, and one hallway appeared on paper but not in reality. During the second week of work, one of Gray's men swung a hammer into the lower corner of that wall to test for rot. The sound that came back wasn't the solid thud of timber, it was hollow. When they broke through the plaster, a wave of stale, cold air drifted out, followed by a faint, putrid odor. Inside the cavity was darkness, thick and unmoving. They called the county police. Within hours, yellow tape surrounded St. Matthew's for the first time in its history. Retired Deputy Harlan Reed, then 80 years old, asked permission to observe. "I knew we'd come back here one day," he told the younger officers. The forensics team worked carefully, removing layers of plaster and wood. Behind it, they uncovered a narrow void about 3 feet wide and 8 feet tall, a hidden corridor running the length of the church. The walls were rough brick, unpolished, as if someone had built it quickly and sealed it off. Near the base, they found the first skeleton. It was curled into a fetal position, both hands pressed against the wall as though clawing to get out. A silver rosary still hung around its neck. The second skeleton was smaller, missing a skull, lying beside a rusted hammer and 2 nails. The third, farther back, was found draped in fragments of blue fabric. When officers lifted its ribcage, a small silver cross fell loose from the debris. Etched on the back were 3 initials, MLW. Mary-Lou Wesson. The town erupted. Reporters swarmed the scene. Television vans lined the street outside the church gates. Forensic experts confirmed the bones dated to the late 1950s. Wicklow County's oldest mystery had been cracked open, quite literally. Hidden within the cavity, investigators found a tin box containing 2 folded letters, both written by Father Donnelly. The second was shorter and darker than the first. "Forgive me, Lord. I only sought to protect your house. Their silence keeps your name pure." The question was, protect it from what? Over the following months, investigators pieced together the impossible truth. Church records showed that in November 1958, just 3 weeks after Mary-Lou vanished, Father Donnelly had authorized construction on the church's north wing. The permit was signed only by him, no architect, no builder. In January 1999, a frail voice reached out from a nursing home in St. Louis. Father O'Brien, now 91 and nearing his final days, requested to speak with detectives. He confessed that on the night Mary-Lou vanished, he had returned late to St. Matthew's after visiting a neighboring parish. Inside the church, the air smelled of wet plaster. He found Donnelly kneeling before the altar, hands trembling, his cassock dusted white. "He told me it was done," O'Brien whispered, "that the Lord's house was safe again. He said no one must ever open the walls." When O'Brien threatened to inform the bishop, Donnelly seized his wrist and said, "Then her blood will stain your soul too." O'Brien said he obeyed, not out of fear of man, but fear of God. The diocese quietly transferred him weeks later. He carried the secret for 40 years, his silence paid for by nightmares. He ended his confession with trembling lips. "The bells still ring for her, you know. Every October, I hear them." Father O'Brien passed away 2 weeks later. By mid-1999, St. Matthew's Church was officially deconsecrated. Its wooden beams were preserved, the northern wall left intact as a memorial. A marble plaque was placed at the site bearing 3 names. Mary-Lou Wesson, 1932 to 1958. Annie Caldwell, 1919 to 1957. Eli Morton, 1911 to 1958. At night, locals say the wind passes through the broken rafters and makes a sound like a faint hymn. Those who've walked the ground swear they've heard singing, a woman's voice, distant yet clear, humming, "Abide with me." And every October 12th, when the moon hangs low and pale, the bells of St. Matthew's ring once more, though no one is there to pull the rope. Today, St. Matthew's stands empty, a monument to what happens when faith and fear intertwine. The pews are gone, the altar stripped bare, but the walls remain, heavy with the silence of those buried within. For decades, the people of Wicklow County thought Mary-Lou had simply vanished, her story lost to time. But time doesn't bury the truth, it preserves it, brick by brick, waiting for someone brave enough to listen. The discovery in 1998 didn't just expose 3 bodies, it unearthed an entire town's guilt, its complicity in trusting holiness over humanity. Mary-Lou's voice, once confined to the echoing rafters of a small-town chapel, now belongs to history, a hymn that never ended, a warning that not all churches are built on faith alone. And if you ever find yourself driving through rural Indiana on a foggy October night, you might hear the faint ringing of a bell from a hill far off the road. Some say it's just the wind. Others swear it's Mary-Lou, finally free, reminding the world that even behind sacred walls, the dead still sing.